Pew pew. Pew pew. Run, 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 run. Welcome to Pottages, your critically nostalgic analytical tour through the Digimon anime. I'm your host, Jeff Ruberg. This week we are discussing Digimon Adventure 2020, episode 27, To the New Continent. And for my guest this week, I am excited to welcome back my boyfriend, Erik.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
It me.
So, I have one new question since last time you were on. What 3 Digimon characters would you invite to a dinner party?
I think I would invite Gabumon because he's best boy, and probably Goemon because, as we saw in Try, he's good around the kitchen. So Goemon has very good table manners. He would help serve the food. And for the third person, I probably would do Leomon. Because everyone loves a murder mystery dinner party.
So you're gonna make the guests at the dinner party do the cooking and the cleaning
No,
after one of their compatriots just died? Wow, brutal. Wow.
I did not come on this podcast to be attacked.
And I asked you last time for your hottest Digimon take, and I won't repeat that because it was too hot for anyone to handle. So what's your second hottest Digimon take?
Oh, I didn't particularly like Tamers. Not
Oh.
Tamers, I'm sorry. Deus Squad, Tamers are the same thing, aren't they? No, Tamers
That's
is
the
the
real hot take. You
Tam
can't tell them apart.
Tamers is the one with the cards. Okay. So
Yeah, the heart of the cards. Yeah, it's that
I
one.
okay.
Exodia. Yeah.
Okay. I don't like Deus Squad. I found it very boring and very confusing as to oftentimes what the main villain was.
I need to cut this off just so you can't spout your lies and slander.
Okay.
But okay, actually, wait, I had to check. What episode were you on last time? I think it was like 17 or 18.
I was on the worst rated episode.
Oh yeah, because I couldn't find
18.
anyone else talk about that. That's not true. Wasn't there? I think there was something we thought. Yeah, because we saw the feathers in the preview, so we thought the Patamon would be involved, or Takaru and Akari would be involved in some way, and then they weren't really.
Something.
Um, but how have for all the listeners, because I mean I've heard your thoughts, but for listeners, how has your impression of the show in general changed since episode 18?
I think it's gone better, and that we got like actual story. But then the past few episodes, uh, it's kind of gotten a little bit down for me. I feel like we got to a nice high, and now it's like I'm waiting for the next thing to happen or the next setup to happen.
So what was that high?
The whole fighting Devamon and seeing new forms and the dark Digivolution. I thought that was really interesting because it was something new. But now we have episodes where they're literally falling for 30 minutes, and that's the whole episode.
Yeah. Well, okay. I was recently thinking about how each arc, I feel like towards the end of the arc, I'm like, "Ugh, I'm sick of the structure of this arc. I can't wait for them to do a new thing." And then at the end of that arc, I'm like, "Ugh, this one was so much more disappointing compared to the last one. I hope the next one's more interesting. And then the next one, I'm also like, this is worse than the last one.
Yeah, like I'm finding at the end of a lot of the past 3 or 2 episodes or so, I've been able to describe the entirety of what's happened in one sentence that only has a few words.
Mm, yeah, like I remember at the end of the intro arc, I think I was like okay with the introduction of the characters one by one, but I was like, okay, give us like we know what to expect at this point. It's formulaic, so give us something new. And then they gave us the ultimate evolutions, and I was like, okay, these are really formulaic. Give us something new. And then they gave us something new, and then it was disappointing. And then it's kind of like, the Ultimate Evolutions were kind of better. And then now they're giving us at the end of that arc with Dun Devimon and stuff. And I don't know, like I think I agree with you that like it had a couple cool enough moments that kind of feel like highs, but I was just exhausted by Taichi and Yamato's focus. So now I'm like, oh, I'm excited for all the group to be back together again. But
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the non Yamato and Taichi are doing.
did you say Yumito? Was that a Freudian slip? um,
I was trying to avoid saying Matt and Tai.
well, let's get into this week's episode, episode 27, To the New Continent, aka the Dragon Dentist, aka Groundjamon's Continental Breakfast, aka New Continent, Same Old Drama. Like every week, we'll be talking about everything in the Crunchyroll episode, including the title and preview for next week, and also everything in the entirety of the original adventure, but not any titles or synopses beyond next week, which as of this recording on Wednesday night, there actually have been title and synopses for like the next 3 or 4 episodes. And also, if we talk about any other seasons of the adventure, we'll give fair warning. But yeah, before we dive into general discussion like last week, we're going to try and instead of doing a like detailed recap, we're just going to give you a brief synopsis and then we'll talk about it in general. So yeah, this episode, the kids catch up with each other. They watch NASA rocket blow up. They cower from black lightning raining down from the sky. They just kind of watch as Leomon and the giant turtle maybe die for good, land on a new continent, try to murder a bunch of tortoises, are horrified when a big dragon tries to do the exact same thing, kill the big dragon, and now that they have 6 fighters teamed up again, cower in fear when an enemy they already defeated 2-on-1 shows up again. So yeah, what do you think?
I thought it showed promise initially when they showed up and all the Digimon were like turned around to fight them for no apparent reason. I thought like, oh great, they're gonna introduce some reason why like the Digimon are so hostile to them, but they just like, oh, Digimon eat other Digimon. Like they've only seen this. I guess this is their second time seeing it in their entirety of the time they've been in digital world. They've only seen this twice, and so they really have to hammer in that fact, like Digimon eat other Digimon.
It's a digi world.
I mean, in the with the last episode where we saw the rookie forms eating Digimon eggs. So
That's still so I mean, not actually confused by that, but like, why would you draw the fruit or whatever they're eating to look so similar to eggs?
I think they were eggs. They really want to hammer this plot in. Digimon eat Digimon.
Yeah, I think I don't know, like in terms of each episode of this show clearly being structured more around action set pieces than character motivation or anything like as far as action set pieces go, I think this was a pretty solid action set piece. Especially like the scenario of everyone teaming up against the ground Dramon and basically like Metal Greymon holding the mouth open and allowing for all the attacks to go in, which is basically the Angelmon versus Miasmon move, but executed well and more viscerally. So I think in terms of action set piece, it was well constructed and was interesting. But I also think it did have sprinklings of nice character moments, like early on, just like giving us a couple minutes to have the characters talk about and like raise questions that would have come up naturally. I don't think I'm a little bit frustrated by like how much they didn't get to cover in those couple minutes, but I mean, they only had limited time to do it. And there was moments later sprinkled when like when they all land on the continent, basically each character lands in a different way that is, I think, pretty representative of their character traits. Like Taichi dives down, then lets Agumon evolve, and then rides his horn as he's jumping down. Yamato just jumps off of Kakumon. Takeru slides off of Kakumon. Joe falls off. Sora jumps dramatically off Bergamon. Mimi rides down Palmon's vines. And I guess Kosher was too busy on his laptop for me to even notice how he got down. But so like I think it was little bits of that characterization were nice to see sprinkled out throughout the episode. But I don't know. The thing that like sticks with me the most, I feel, is the treatment of Leomon and just Leomon died in this episode. Maybe. Like I'm just so frustrated by like the vagueness to that because I don't think it's abnormal for Digimon to have like an off-screen death. And I mean it's like a typical screen like rule of screenwriting that if the death happens off screen, then like you never know for sure if the death happened or not. So in structure, it's not too foreign or too weird to not know whether he died or not. So I'm not really complaining that we don't know if he died or not. What I find frustrating is that like it feels weird for that death to be considered off screen because we were watching it and then there was just a burst of lightning and then there was just a big vortex and it's like what happened? Why would it like why would the El Doradimon getting hit by lightning make a giant vortex?
I think they just sunk into the ocean. He was tired from swimming, but I'm fairly confident that Leowan's going to come back and save him by flying the one of the three birds that they have. I'm pretty sure they're going to come back and swing a moment of triumph as he once again saves them from fighting whatever Digimon they're fighting at that time.
So you think like El Doradimon might be dead, but Leomon and Pekmon survived?
I think he's probably just gonna go for a dip, but they didn't like stick around long enough to see him resurface. and now their attention is too busy on the Digimon buffet that's happening apparently all over the digital world.
I guess that's fair because like they do say like they do try. I forget who says it, but like they're worried about his safety or their safety, like Eldoraemon, Leomon, and the others. And then someone says, "I need to keep looking forward." So like, I guess they could have just dipped below the water, but like, why was there a big vortex that wasn't even moving? They didn't even animate the vortex moving. I just,
Yeah, and I think that was Sora that said, she was like, "No,
yeah,
Mimi, do not look back. Leomon is gone."
I just
She's very upset she didn't get Beamon has not gotten, the evolution sequence for Digimon.
I feel like at this point, the evolution sequences, like, I don't know, I feel like they actually did feel pretty egalitarian. Like, I know technically it wasn't, but like the sequence we got where a bunch of them were like in rapid fire evolutions, I was like, okay, Bergemon's or Garudamon's isn't too light compared to the others. I think that was fine. But the thing that the like Leomon and Eldoradimon like blowing up or whatever happening quote unquote off screen that bothers me is that like it's so similar to how Eldoradimon and all the kid and the three kids and everything were on Eldoradimon on Cloud Continent and then just fell off Cloud Continent without any depiction of how that happened. It just feels like it's the second big instance of a big plot important thing happening without the animators like having the resources to draw it happening, so they just don't show the camera looking at it, and it's like, don't think about it. Don't like we can't even talk about it and explain what happened. So
How did Dark Knightmon get to the ground continent as well? Because the last we saw, was he showed up to make, Devimon Digivolve, and then he, like, walked off, and now he's on the ground. Did he fall as well?
I mean, he could just flown like he flies, right? He
How
has.
No, that's a separate, like, Digimon that, like, helps him.
I mean, he could have gotten around it. I don't think it's too weird. Maybe he de-digivolved to have that helping like Dark Maelstrom thing, and then came back to Dark Knightmon just to be dramatic, just to have a dramatic entrance.
And then have the crystal evolve him again.
Oh yeah, he needed the crystal last time to do it,
You
didn't he?
know, you just tap on the little crystal and say, "Hey, little buddy, you want to digivolve me?"
That's actually Moon Millenniumon's real name, little buddy. Hey, little buddy. um, yeah. So I thought it was really cute when Hikari was talking to Agumon in the beginning.
Yeah, I like that.
They're cute, even if I think it's weird for them to be like, "Oh, Leomon died. Let's move on." None of the characters aside from Taichi, Yamato, and Takeru even know who Leomon is. None of them met Leomon
I
or
mean,
talked to Leomon.
Sora and Joe heard about Leomon.
Right, but they didn't actually meet him.
I
So
mean, they don't have to react to it because he's not dead. They know he's not dead.
yeah, I guess I should mention that I put a Twitter poll today. Okay, I should also explain that we're recording this very late. We're recording this on Wednesday night / early Thursday morning, so it's pretty different than normal episodes. And because of that, I would not have posted this poll so soon after the episode aired because it would be full of spoilers. People hadn't watched the episode right away. But I think it was opportune this time that we waited to record a little bit because I could post this poll, basically just asking if people thought Leomon died in the episode. And right now, it's only 47 votes, so it's not tons of votes, but it's sitting at 61% thinking he died. Sorry, 61% thinking he did not die, and 38% thinking he did die. And I don't know. I just feel like probably not a good sign if the fandom is so divided on like what actually happened in the episode. Probably isn't a great sign for like communicating things effectively.
It's Leomon. If he's gonna die, they're gonna show his particles floating up into the sky like the savior lion he is.
See, I agree with you. Like, I think because it is a character that everyone expects to die, I think if you're going to kill him, you have to make it a very explicit death. But I
Right.
also am worried that I'm worried about having expectations in general. So I'm like, if I expect him to die in a very specific way, that I'm worried that they'll just do it in a more disappointing way, and then we'll just look back at the end of the season and be like, "Remember when we thought Leon was going to come back? Nope, that was it." But maybe, hopefully, I do like how this episode seems like we've kind of like fallen into a groove of like the structure of Digimon causing chaos in the real world, then harvesting that chaos for energy in the digital world. I think it's good. That's kind of like the structure of the season in terms of like big events happening in the digital world.
Yeah.
And I think it's a cool concept. It's a little bit weird because like at least before they had like when they were split up, it made sense that like okay they could be dealing with things in the real world to prevent the things happening in the digital world, but now they're all in the digital world, so like I don't know.
Yeah, the Digimon could just be like waiting, like, okay, they're gone. Let's go back to draining all that and causing all this havoc.
Yeah.
And they only, I guess, they only stop. It's like, oh, the side crew is they're reincorporated in the. Okay, we have to stop now. Everyone stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's weird because they don't have the power to actually, of their own volition, jump back and forth. So, like, yeah, they wouldn't be able to like follow the Digimon or like, it's kind of just like things are happening at random places and then those cause random effects. But in the abstract, removed from the actual events of the episodes, I think on paper, like chaos in the real world causes, big events in the digital world that the kids have to solve in the digital world is a kind of cool concept.
How much energy does that little buddy need? Because all this, I'm assuming, is to feed the little buddy in the crystal. It's like how much sustenance does he really need before it finally digivolves to something else?
I do not know. Also, I cannot say because I did read a spoiler that I don't want to.
Okay.
This is a regular occurrence with us right now because I'm rewatching Lost and Eric's watching Lost for the first time, and he keeps asking me questions, and I'm like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
If a Digimon's hidden inside of a crystal was to come back in the next two episodes, which
Uh,
one would you think it would be? Just
no, no,
hypothetical,
I didn't say
hypothetical,
that.
just throwing it out
I
there.
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Hmm.
But
These are the kind of questions I have to live with as we go
um,
through loss.
what do you think about the shadow on the shore? Did you catch that when they were like before they? I think it's before they spot the that the rock fixtures on the island are Tortimon. So at first I was like, is the shadow the fact that they are Digimon, not rock fixtures? But I don't think that's. I think there was actually a different character potentially slash probably got him on. But what do you think about it?
I didn't see that. I'm gonna pull it up real quick.
I'll send you a screenshot. One second. So I found like I got a screen grab of like the moment that you see a silhouette, and it's like,
Oh no, that's just a little. I'm pretty sure that's one of the. Oh, so, well, because
oh, do you think it's like just a head of a Tortimon?
what are their names? Tortomon
Like tortellini.
or Tortoise?
No, like tortellini. They're definitely based on tortellini. Like, why
Okay.
he's eating them?
Um, okay. So I thought they were all the little shadows, all the little Tortellinis. But now that I'm looking at it again, these crystals that are sticking out of the ground also look like the back of their shell? So are they like hiding in the ground and they popped up?
Yeah, that's
It
our.
definitely does not look like Gatomon. Gatomon's not that thick.
If it's Gatomon, it's a very different. I was like, maybe it's Gatomon's tail, but like drawn in a very different style. Or it's just Tortimon's head.
I'm pretty sure it's a
But
head.
so yeah, I don't know. I have kind of abstained from like I try to not listen to other Digimon podcasts before recording, so I don't like end up just accidentally repeating everything other people said. So I'm not at this point. At this point, I'm not sure what other people have thought about this. But I'm curious if everyone just assumes that it's was the Tortomon that's not important, or if it's seeding Gatomon. I kind of mentioned it in the recap, but I find it I find it pretty hypocritical that like they get attacked by the Tortomon and they're like, okay, let's fight back against Tortomon. And in every other instance where they fought back against Digimon, they just mercilessly kill them. But then as soon as Groundramon shows up and does the same thing by mercilessly killing them, but in a slightly more brutal manner, they're like, oh my god, this world is so vicious. And it's like, is the fact that he's biting them, is that really so different than killing them in other ways? Like,
I mean, it's a pretty gruesome image. I mean, they're used to fighting, but to gnaw down on another Digimon's kind of that's a little different. That's hardcore.
yeah, I agree.
Groundramon's hardcore.
It does look more vicious, but like, I mean, they just like did a whole on Malamon genocide without any regret, and they were like wincing and blowing up in pain as it was happening. So,
So I just went actually was able to get my login. And so there's a second image of a shadow that's on the opposite side of the shot. So I'm pretty sure it's just
oh, it's like there are multiple shadows, so it's
yeah.
just
So
the.
and it's moving too as well. So it's like on the right side of the shore, and then the camera pans over to a left shadow.
Okay, so it's really just them
Yeah,
noticing that the rock fixtures are Tortimon.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well that debunks that theory, I guess.
It could be a shadow monster. I'm just saying. A smoke monster. I'm sorry, a smoke monster. It could be a smoke monster.
Um, I guess the last big thing to talk about this episode is the new ending song, which is basically just a slideshow plus a couple short clips of Mimi dancing. But I think it's a great slideshow. It shows lots of fun characterization of these kids, and
Toramon die. Mimi dances.
it's just I don't know. I hesitate in giving this reaction because I'm like, isn't this the obvious reaction that like it's great, it's fantastic, why have we gotten more characterization of these kids from these still images than from the show up to this, in 27 episodes of the show? That is frustrating and kind of exhausting to realize.
I think they were lying. I mentioned this last time, last episode. So I think they were lying a lot on people having like a base knowledge of what these characters are about from the original.
Yeah, that's true. So, like, I guess it's not really the like characterization that I mind so much, but even just the fun, like the fun moments these characters, like, I feel like this like fun and levity is more than we've gotten in the show.
Yeah, I mean, Gatamon's already they're already showing Gatamon off, and she hasn't even been in the show. Whereas in the original, she was not allowed into the intro until the episode after she was like shown to be a partner Digimon.
I forget how that. I think that might have been different in the Japanese airing, but I forget
Oh,
exactly.
well, in the English, in the dub, they show like all the champions, and then the shot of Gatomon like jumping onto Kari's balcony doesn't happen until after the episode, and
Right,
then it's
right.
inserted in.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess also the last note on the ending song is that as fun as those slides are, I really don't like the song.
I miss the old song, but maybe it's just because I'm used to hearing it so much.
I think the old song was pretty catchy. There were times where I'd listen to it and then just like bob my head to it because it's a really good banger. But this one is just
The kids call it a bop, I believe.
oh boy, Kids Bop. Yes, I agree.
Bopmon.
I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me the more we hear it, but I think the last one was a bop. This one's a flop in terms of the song. Sorry.
But what about the kids bop version of the bop?
So anyway, um, yeah. So I think this was like an okay episode, but I guess we'll do some three reviews and listener questions before we get into our final thoughts. So yeah, let's do three reviews. At Golden Pelt, sudden Leomon departure.
At CC Takano, I'll miss Leomon.
At Gigagerman 22, Leomon not dead.
At bored individual, how much Leomon?
Yeah, you should appreciate that from your favorite try.
Oh, okay.
um, Joseph Nosif, 2020 to 2021. This is hard to understand because they also included an image of the empty vortex and the kids just like fleeing the empty vortex. But that is hopefully us leaving 2020 behind.
At NNN Podcast says, wash your hands.
And I think this is a reference to the Zero Two episode with the Tortamon, where like they find Tortamon peeing and then he's just like washing his hands. Actually, I think the peeing was cut out in the dub.
What? What episode was this?
I think the peeing was cut out in the dub now that I think about it. Like they're like Davis is like basically like stalking a Tortamon because he wants Vmon to digivolve to show off to Gatomon.
Oh, I just found it.
But yeah, I think there's something that they like reframe him like I think they just cut out the peeing part, but I think the reason he's like washing his hands in the water is because he went peeing in
Yeah,
the Japanese version.
it says in the Japanese airing, Toramon is so mad at TK and Davis because they interrupted his urination, and he's like, Toramon has his leg up as if it's like a dog peeing. So,
Same.
wow.
Well, anyway, Lucas Kukas, hands off Groundramon.
At Megadramon 22, dude, Groundramon big.
At Andy, mad at Wentz, murderers, scared murderers.
At Dot yawning, colorful team beams.
At Jason 26, got Avengers vibes.
At Dak and Jackster, Mel Greymon, dentist mode.
At Pastelmon Art, can they rest?
At Faku AF, stop the slideshow.
At Leo Sketch, Joe's still leader. I guess that's something I forgot to mention that like I feel like the one moment of humor that we're allowed in the show is jokes about Joe considering himself a leader, and I'm just frustrated by it because his character used to have depth, and now it's just the one joke that he's making.
I,
But
I I think in this timeline, Joe may actually not become a doctor. He may become an evil scientist to get revenge at everyone making fun of him. All his friends are causing trauma right now.
Also, as I should mention, in terms of, it's not quite fair to say that's the only moment of levity because he also, I really appreciated when they're getting off of El Doradimon and Gomon jumps off first, and then Joe just like trips and falls off, and then Gomon evolves into Kakumon before Joe can land on him, and I was like, that sums up the dynamic pretty well.
At 1 foot stout, together is good.
And last one, Grim Competition. Mimi Palmon dancing. Yeah. Okay. So let's move into listener questions. First off, CC Takato asked, "Do you think having the show be nonstop action is hurting the animation quality?"
I think a little bit, probably because they have all these scenes, and I think they're. I mean, you can probably speak more to it, but they're probably still under a bit of a time crunch with COVID still. So if they're just focusing mainly on action, those scenes I imagine take more time to actually get done. So if they have less time, just turn on slideshow mode.
I mean, I don't think it's too hard to guess like the actual conditions of the production and how much COVID has affected things or not. I mean, by all accounts, like the animation production process so heavily relies on like independent, like basically animators working as independent contractors. And this is mainly something you can see by watching the anime Shirobako, where basically like individual artists in like their separate apartments draw these things and then ship off the frames and then so a lot of I guess my point is that, like a lot of production probably can be done without being affected too much by COVID. And also Japan's been on a very different trajectory than us. I think most people return to work pretty like I don't think people are working remotely these days. So I don't know. I think more so I don't think it's fair to say that like the animation quality has really been hurt by the focus on nonstop action, but I think the like structural focus of the show on nonstop action is hurting the just the other things that aren't action. Like I guess my point is that Toei does other shows that have this much action and without sacrificing other animation quality. So I don't think it's fair to say that like that is the one reason why animation quality suffers. And yeah, I just wouldn't think that if I'm thinking about the things that think of the things that nonstop action has hurt, the first thing that comes to mind is not the animation quality. Because it's like what I want out of the show is the stuff that doesn't need that many resources to be animated well. So like just moments of characters talking would be nice, but oh well. At Joseph Snosif, first off, they asked if we basically like on a scale from 1 to 10 how nervous we were for Togemon and Akakamon, and they also mentioned they're shocked by how scary Groundron was, and they're mourning for the mouthfuls of Tortamon. I just thought it was like I actually did for a second think like the imagery of Togemon and Akakamon in Groundron's mouth was or claws. I don't think they were in the mouth. It was gruesome enough that I was like, oh, I would not have said they're completely safe. Like I thought maybe they were gonna do. Do you remember in like Palmon's introduction episode where she like started to flicker? Like I was like maybe they're actually maybe a little threatened. So
Yeah, when the Tortomon were like attacking and the ground below them started shaking and they sort of started falling, I thought like, oh, like there's just so many of them. The ground beneath them is just collapsing because it's so heavy. I did not expect a bigger Digimon to come up and swallow all of them whole. And that was a complete change in pace that I was not ready for.
you
And
know,
so seeing that followed by Togemon and Kakamon like in like moments away from possibly dying, it was pretty jarring.
yeah. So I think it is a testament to they hyped up Garajimon as being threatening pretty well. At Andy Mad at Wentz, I'm thrown off because this is a frequent commenter who changed their Twitter handle recently. So I'm like, this is I'm off my game. But they they first off mentioned how kind of hypocritical it is to for the kids to kind of get credulous at Groundamon killing Tortamon. So Andy mentions that it's an interesting change to basically to change the rules of Digivolution with having Digimon killing each other and to kind of like they did in Tamers, but that it's weird to introduce in episode 27. And then they ask, is it reactionary to fans or do you think the writers change their minds? Or each continent the kids will visit will have different rules associated with it? For example, a continent slash arc with armor, eggs, or Sweet Evolution. I don't think I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do think that it's basically just a sign that this is a more brutal world. This is the like everything's intense here. Like,
This is Digimon 2020.
yeah, this is the digi world where things are much more hardcore and like so
I mean, it could also be that without the Holy Digimon in like on a throne or something, the source of Digivolutions is not happening. So nature takes a different course and causes Digimon to have to eat other Digimon or Digivolve. I guess that's similar would be similar to Tamers as well. But that is one of
mm,
the things considering the only time we see Digimon Digivolve, or at least the partner Digimon Digivolve without the Digivices is when Angemon allows it. So
that's not true because the crystal.
I suppose, yeah, maybe that the crystal is Gatomon.
And also, didn't Devamon going to Neo Devamon was without the crystal, right?
Um,
I think he's like did that himself.
no, I think they're all crystal.
Hmm. Sailor
Yeah,
Moon
sure.
Crystal.
But if Gatamon's inside the crystal, then that would mean the evolution sequence goes from little lizard to dog to cat to angel, back to
It's
dog
it's
or
definitely not
dragon.
Gatomon inside the crystal.
You never
I
know.
I can't even put up with that joke because I know people will complain and be like, "Did you know it's Moon Millenniumon?" It's like, yes, yes, it's definitely Moon Millenniumon,
It's little
but
buddy, little buddy.
yes, also known as Little Buddy.
I mean, this is also a world that a digital world that doesn't have their. It's still a world that doesn't have their holy Digimon. Nor does it have like their saviors since we're all in rookie form. So it's kind of a Mad Max world happening.
Yeah, okay. So feeding on that, I want to read a different set of questions from Grim Catician, and they first off they kind of agree with my frustration at least of the ending song giving us more characterization than 27 episodes of the show. But then they go on to ask, what are your thoughts about this version of the digital world? 99 Adventure had Animalistic Digimon too, but the balance here is leaning more towards that type, especially for enemy mons, which is my favorite. And do you think the Dark Digimon slash current Big Bads are responsible for the Mon Eat Mon world? They also send thanks for the podcast because it's been a bright spot for them in 2020, which I think I'm glad the podcast can be a bright spot for people in this in this 2020. But I wanted to read that comment because I think it is like you're talking about the holy Digimon being on his throne or not, whatever, and like the whole digital world, I feel like is so disparate and like not connected, and so like whole Angemon existing up in Cloud Continent. I'm like, does that have any bearing on this other world that we're in now that Leomon didn't even know about? Leomon didn't even know that his entire world was on a floating continent. So like from his standpoint, they're in a completely new world. They're in like uncharted territory. So I don't even know if like do the things that happened in Cloud Continent even affect the world they're in now? Like
And it would have been nice to get some of these questions answered or hints towards them. But the first thing they did when we got to this new continent is, have Toyramon start attacking them and then have the new main villain show up.
which I think having Angemon show up at the end of the episode, I think is there's a possibility because I mean it seems like Angemon slash Patamon has not forgotten his memories, and I assume
Oh, he's still bitter. Angelon's still bitter about him.
I assume in Angemon form he will be more talkative than he was in Patamon form, but I'm also worried that well, this kind of feeds into one of the next comments. So Pastamon Art asked, "Do you think Patamon will join the fights of the rest of the group now that he can evolve, or will it be like a special event every time Angemon appears?" And they said, "I think they will change the focus to Gatomon this arc. So of course Patamon will be special, but not the center of attention." And the only thought that I have on that is that like I worry that Angemon at this point has all the answers and the show is not focused, does not want to tell us things, does not want to have things explained in exposition. So I'm worried that Angemon will only exist to like fight off Dark Knightmon, and then we'll revert back to Patamon or something. He'll be too exhausted to talk or something, and like as kind of a like he'll only be there. He'll only be pulled out when there's some fight to have. That means he can't actually explain things. That's my theory.
I think that Anjuman will use like a lot of his energy to force Dark Knightmon to either get weaker or de-digivolve. Maybe to make the fight more doable, even though they've already done this fight before. And then from then on, Anjuman will be not as strong. He'll lose like whatever power up being a holy Digimon grants you. I think that may happen because otherwise they just have this super strong Digimon that's just waiting to kick some ass.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like everything we've seen from Angemon is not like Angemon's presence in the original show was DPS, right? Maybe I'm thinking too much in Final Fantasy 14 terms, but like he was a really powerful fighter. But I feel like what we've seen in Angemon in this show is that he's more of a support role. Like he can aid evolution, and maybe he's a little bit OP in terms of being able to aid evolutions too much and being able to buff the other characters too much. And I think given that the preview for next week's episode shows, I forget Dark Knightmon's usual form, Skull Knightmon.
Hmm.
I think since it shows Skull Knightmon, I think you might be onto something that he causes that DG evolution or something. But so I don't think Angemon is like if he serves that role, like is reliably able to buff the characters and debuff the enemies. To me, that does not feel too OP. But maybe it's because it's not a formula I'm used to seeing in Digimon, so I'm intrigued by it. I'm just mainly frustrated that at this point, he has so much knowledge about how the digital world works and how it's structured, and he has no interest in telling all of us.
Because they have no time to stop and ask questions.
But like, I mean, like even in this episode, they talked a little bit in the beginning about like they had the moment where like, oh, Patamon's the holy Digimon, and they're like, oh, he is. Wow, wow, didn't expect that. And it's like, I mean, I get he's been through a lot, and like maybe isn't gonna just be like, okay, stop. I need to tell you kids your new mission. But it is, I don't know. It just feels weird, especially since now they're on this new continent for no reason. They basically just got some direction from Liam on like you should keep moving ahead. So now they're just moving ahead because they fell off the continent and they can't go back. So I guess we'll just keep moving ahead. But like, why are they moving ahead? Like we
Source
got,
said move forward.
yeah. Or I guess actually, I think it was last episode where I think it was Leomon speculating about how Eldoradimon was headed towards the continent, and they were like, "There must be a reason it's happening." So keep going. I just like the beginning of the show, we got so much like early on we got that episode with the not quite a prophecy like the historical event that happened and the holy digimon like giving them guidance to go find the holy digimon, and now the defeated devimon we're like 3 episodes out from that when they're just kind of doing I don't even know what. Why are you sending me random patamon images?
I was looking for the image of Paimon crying.
Okay, next question from Lucas Kukas. Between the Tortobon and Grangemon this episode and the Mamamon from a few episodes ago, this series is getting some of the most gruesome on-screen Digideaths in the franchise. What's a particularly nasty way you'd like to see a Digimon go in a future episode? So I know you're like thinking about Digimon being gruesomely murdered, so
Um, I think, I think that Anjuwamon got a nice cat fight, if you will, with oh my god, what's her name? Lady Devimon, in the original. So I think it would be nice to see like Lilymon have a similar villain. So if Lilymon's like a flower, and what's the opposite of a flower? Like a bush, like a giant sexy bush, and they're like fighting and attacking each other, and then somehow the bush dies, and the bush gets lit on fire, and it's a burning bush, and just dies. And that would be pretty gruesome. And then like Groundramon comes up and eats the burning bush, and then a sea dragon comes out and eats that. And Digimon are just hungry, and they really like if for $5 a month, you too can support a hungry Digimon.
well, anyway, now that bit is over, um, I think I want to see a Digimon that is like that Mimi defeats, and they like literally like get eviscerated, like they like crumble to dust, crumble to the digital data, whatever, just through Mimi like hating on their fashion sense so hard that they just get obliterated. That's what I want to see.
I also would like to see a Digimon that has a straw as a weapon, and they stab a Digimon with the straw and then slurp up their digital data.
I mean, what would really happen is like
Milkshake Mon, if you will.
they use the straw on another Digimon, then the straw like bounces back and crumples up, and they're like, "Oh no, it was a paper straw. I forgot about the new guidelines."
Yeah, I can't suck any of the liquids up anymore because the straw's too saturated. It's not good anymore. Does anyone have a metal straw?
I
Anyone?
mean, Splashmon really, Splashmon dying from global warming is the real future we're heading towards. Okay, so AccuDigimon22 asked us if we think that the writers were basically mandated to not change the 8 kids too much from their 99 versions, because if they did, there'd be fear of fan revolt, but then also told not to repeat the character, the beats in the original show, and that's why we are left with the Shao characterization. And well, I'll keep going on. And they also said that they like we were starting to get some insight into Yamato and Takara's relationship this episode, but then they had to quickly move on from it. And that there was something similar with the new Star Wars movies and Trevorrow being told that they had to just focus on the new characters and ignore the old ones. And I don't think that is quite the situation that happened with this show. I think there are things that we can see and try in terms of them not wanting to change the characterization too much for fear of fan revolt, like confirming any ships as canon or not in Try. Like I feel like there's a lot they had to kind of like awkwardly dance around without upsetting anyone in Try. But I think in this version, I think there are definitely some things like that they probably don't want to that are like sacred cows they can't change. So I think but that's in terms of like shipping. And I think in this show, like the characters, there's so little characterization that no one's really shipping characters together anyway. But I think this lack of characterization is from the action focus and from I'm thinking recently about an interview back from May about the head screenwriter for the show, like kind of focusing his inspiration for Taichi on V-Tamer Taichi,
Mm.
which I think is an admirable goal. V-Tamer is a story a lot of people like. A lot of people like V-Tamer Taichi, but I think it's a particularly awkward thing to pull from because that was about a single kid with a single Digimon. And I think he had a couple other Digimon friends, but like it wasn't one kid coordinating with a team. And I feel like a lot of the awkward characterization comes from that this once I realized that I was like, oh yeah, this does feel like Taichi is kind of acting completely independently and then kind of just nods occasionally at other characters and they're like, okay, we got it. Yeah, I don't think this shallow characterization comes from being afraid to repeat character beats. I think it just comes from the whole goal being to not focus on that stuff. But I also don't feel like Star Wars. I don't think the new Star Wars movies. I think it's an admirable goal to focus on the new characters and build them up and make compelling characters and stories of those new characters.
I think they're just going in with. I think the people who are making it are also probably fans of the original, maybe even watched it as kids, and so I think they already have these ideas of what these characters are, and so they're like, I'm running with it. We already know who Tai is, so we don't need to add more to it. Everyone knows who Tai is.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like it definitely feels like a show that's not starting from zero.
Yeah.
And the last comment from Megajimon 22 was first mentioning that they didn't realize Granjimon was so big. Seeing him in Cybersuit, they kind of thought they were like Greymon size, and same thing with Kanabimon, which I definitely agree with. Right? But I think also Cybersleuth, like the video game limitations mean that characters have to be, scaled down necessarily. Like I'm thinking of a Apocalypse being kind of like miniature sized in that game. But they mainly asked what we think of the ending compared to the other endings, and is it foreshadowing a new real world arc? Although they also mentioned that ending two kind of lied about TK being. It implied that TK was in the digital world, abandoned, which didn't quite happen. So yeah, I don't know. I doubt this ending song is hinting too much at explicitly what happens in the show in terms of plot. I think it's just a tonal piece, and I would not get my hopes up too high about them actually spending lots of time in the real world.
Yeah, I think the only chance to go to the real world is if Lil Buddy decides to burst out of his crystal and somehow opens a portal and they have to all fall through. It doesn't even seem like they have a way to get back to the real world unless they need a reason for Matt and Ty to be alone again to actually defeat something.
If if they think they're alone now.
Yes.
Oh, crap, I don't know any of the lyrics of that song. I do think they're gonna probably end up going back to the real world, maybe even a couple times back and bounce back and forth due to whatever weird shenanigans that happen, weird Hikari just glowing randomly, things that happen. But I think the vibe in this ending of them just chilling in the real world is probably not going to happen. And I also think if they are in the real world for an extended period of time, that we're not going to get the focus on the families that we got in the original adventure.
Yeah.
I think we'll just get the kind of like brief glimpses that we got last time that like the little glimpses of Mimi's family or Joe's family is about the full extent that we can expect from future arcs. Like maybe a vague explanation to the Chekhov's gun of what's up with Kosher's family, because they did seem to kind of like having him intentionally trail off explaining his family situation. Like they're probably going to explain that, but I don't think it's going to be a very thorough explanation. But yeah, before we, do you have any final thoughts, or do you want to jump into rating the episode?
Go ahead and rate it.
All right, so what would you rate it out of five mouthfuls of tasty little tortamon?
I think I would give it a 3 just because I really would have liked them to arrive on the continent and for them to somehow get away from the Tortamon and have some hints or something point to where the story's going instead of us still having them be in this ongoing fight and just running. Because it doesn't even seem like Digimon had time to rest, so somehow they're supposed to be strong enough to continue these fights, and I just feel like we need an episode where they can stop, ask the questions that everyone has, and just try to give the audience an idea of where the plot is going.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like looking back at how satisfied I was by I forget which episode that was, episode five or so, when they get the big info dump. Like I feel like those first couple like, we got a couple episodes of them being in the digital world without an explanation of why or how or whatever, and then there was an explanation. I feel like that, like, in those couple episodes, we got, like, a little bit of, debt of questions, and then that info dump answered all of them, and then since that episode, we have just been accruing more and more, question debt, and now we're just in so much question debt that we occasionally get, like, one tiny little answer, and that's it, and it's like, I'm just buried in question debt. And so maybe, I guess I'm hoping that like if this is like a new like the second big arc of the show, that we're going to soon in an episode or two get a big info dump that answers all of that question debt. But I also realistically looking back, like the scale and the number of questions, how this world worked that we had in episode 5, we have so many more with such a bigger question debt now that I don't think any info dump can actually
Yeah.
resolve that. It's like going off of 2 hours of sleep every night for weeks and then trying to get one night of 8 hours sleep and expect that to really fix things. So, yeah, I guess in terms of the rating, I guess I'll also give it 3 mouthfuls of tasty little tortamon out of 5. But mainly because like I feel like it's middle of the road. Like I feel like I am as kind of like impressed as I was by some aspects of this episode. I was also very frustrated by others, and I'm just kind of like too exhausted to pick a rating, kind of. So I'm just like, oh, middle of the dartboard, sure. And actually, I'm curious because one of the reasons that like we planned to have you on this episode was because you were excited for Angemon, and it seemed like Patamon was going to be doing something dramatic and big this episode.
But
And then it
yeah.
turned out that was basically just a teaser for next week instead. How do you feel about that?
A little let down. I mean, the preview showed basically everything that was in the episode in terms of Patamon. So I wish we got more, and I'm hoping there's going to be um, more to Padma in the next episode. Besides, like maybe somehow nerfing Dark Knightmon and then losing most of his power. I don't know. I just want more Patamon. I want more
Hmm.
Angemon. I don't know. I think. I mean, he still has a lot of punch in him. Every time he does his boom bubble, like those attacks seem much stronger than they were in the original. I don't know. He has a lot of built up power in that tiny little body.
I think you might be reading into the boom bubble a little too much. Might be a little high on the boom fumes, if you know what I mean.
But then when when he attacked Dundevimon, he when he was a little taken aback by it.
On that note, I totally forgot about how like they kept seeding the idea that Patamon and Devimon were friends, and uh, that's just one of the big drops in the giant question debt bucket. So I don't know, maybe we'll get an answer for that soon. But it seems like they're just that one image of is it Sora? Yeah, Sora telling Mimi to keep looking ahead. Like that's what the show is. They're never gonna look back and explain things.
Ooh, ooh.
I was thinking about how like that I think it would be a fun if people wanted to do a drinking game for listening to this podcast. That one of the most obvious things would be to take a drink whenever I sigh. And I wonder if like the amount that you drink is should be correlated to the length of the sigh. But anyway, who's your MVP?
I'm gonna Padmon because he showed up, and that's all we really can ask of Padmon at this point. Who is your MVP?
I will pick Dark Knight Mon just because he
Oh,
did nothing, but
okay. This is gonna be this kind of week of the apartment. Because I see.
he was
Okay.
there.
Why? How is he there? That's still my question.
How was Patamon there? Hmm, hmm, hmm.
He flew.
Oh, I thought you meant like how much. I thought you meant like how much was he there, but you meant like literally how to get there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's also a very cute scene when they were still on Eldradomon, where uh, when they're saying like, "Oh, that's a holy Digimon," and Padamon's wings are in front of his eyes, like he's very bashful. It's very cute. Also, I've never seen his wings like that before.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, in the moment you were complaining, you were like, "This is not how you animate Patamon. The animators have broken Patamon. They've ruined him. This is a terrible show." So you said in the moment when you're watching it.
Oh my gosh.
So next week's episode is titled "The Children's Fight for Survival," and it seems like the children are going to be separated. It seems like Dark Knightmon is there as Skull Knightmon instead. There's Millenniummon moving around in his little crystal.
Hello, buddy.
Yeah, I don't really I don't know. I don't know what to expect from this.
He has to get comfortable. He has to find the spot that's just right. Like he's eating all this human energy. It's like, he just needs to wiggle around, get his little comfy spot.
Okay. All I want from this episode is I want Skull Knightmon and Angemon to talk to each other. I want them to say things that illustrate something about their relationship and their place in this world and how they factor into it. And I do not have any realistic expectation of that actually happening. But that's what I want.
I would like them to just get away and to get the story. That's all I want. They don't even need to talk to him. Angemon can just learn a teleportation skill and just like whoop, and just they go to wherever Leomon is hiding in some underwater cave.
I guess I also want them soon to have some clarification of like for them to not just be proceeding for no reason, for them to actually have a purpose again. But I don't think it's going to necessarily happen in this episode. Like it might be another one or two episodes out, just guessing based on how long it took us to get to that in the first 5 episodes of the show.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I'm getting less and less excited to watch each week, but
I'm excited to watch, even if I get disappointed after. I'm so excited to watch.
yeah, I guess that's true. Like by the time Saturday rolls around, like I am always curious. I'm like, "Oh, what's going to happen in the next episode?" And we do usually end up watching as soon as it comes out. But I guess I'm less optimistic each week. I'm just my optimism is slowly being replaced by more and more pessimism and jaded reality. On that note, that brings us to the end of the show. Last week's Digiprompt was in honor of the Taichi and Yamato show maybe finally being over. What two Digimon characters do you think could carry an entire show with no other characters? And this got tons of really good responses to this one, and it was really hard to choose between them, so I'm going to pick two my favorites this time. Luke Suga said that they would like to see a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead style retelling of the original adventure from the perspective of Sukumon and Chumon, which I don't really buy into Sukumon and Chumon being protagonists, but I think it would be a cool, like seeing the original adventure from a different perspective would be really cool. And CRR McRae said Rio and May. With the two most universally beloved characters in the franchise, there will be hours of deep, meaningful content to show, which is truly the trolling content I look for. um, and this week's Digiprompt is in honor of Groundjamon's continental breakfast. What Digimon would you want to eat and why? And I really want to emphasize that why. Like I don't want to see basic like here's a cake mon. I forget what that Digimon's called. I don't want to say like, oh this Digimon looks cute. I don't want to see like that I forget what it is.
The burger.
There's the Bergamon. There's also the penguin. It's I can't remember the name of it. Penmon, I think. Like Tommy. It's like the fusion spirit from Tommy's line in Frontier, but like because it's a penguin with two popsicles as weapons.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to see like simple things of like oh because it's cake, because it's a burger, because it's food. Like I want to see creative reasons why you want to eat these Digimon. When people be creative. And send your responses to that and general feedback to potages@gmail.com, potages on Twitter, or in the episode comments on our website potages.com. If this is your first episode, you can subscribe wherever you find podcasts, share the podcast with your friends who block lightning with their hands and then dramatically exit into a giant empty vortex with no explanation, and you never know if they'll show up again. And, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a really important way to grow the podcast, and it's the best way to support the show. I'm definitely Jeff on Twitter. You can also check out my general anime podcast, Love It a Wee Bit. After weeks of saying that new episodes will be coming out again, they are finally coming out again. Last week, put out an episode about Rent a Girlfriend, which is a terrible show, but is interesting to see how it's terrible, I think. And also God of High School, which has some vague Digimon similarities, at least in that the main character looks a lot like Tai. And this upcoming week, I'm going to be releasing an episode about the latest season of Precure, which I think is particularly interesting for people who follow Digimon because of the connection with Toei Animation, and it's interesting to see what Toei does with a show they actually are fully invested in the future of, and it is kind of depressing to come back to Digimon after that. But yeah, Erik, thank you for coming on. Where can people find you online?
You can find. I just started tweeting a bit more. My username is at Leo Untweeted. Um, so you'll find the bad tweets I've been thinking of. As we've been recording this episode, the tweets I've been thinking of, and also any tweets that eventually make it to Prodigious because I'm the one who says them first, and then they get stolen. So,
Sure.
so you can find them there if you want the sneak previews.
So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back with another guest next week to talk about episode 28, The Children's Fight for Survival. Bye!
Bye.
And remember, never stop Digivolving. So I don't know how well it's gonna work in an audio medium, but there was a funny post on Reddit the other day that I think is might be fun to highlight, where they basically took a bunch of random cute pictures of Patamon and numbered them, and then just asked, "Which Patamon are you today?" So, can you explain each one of them?
Sure.
We'll have a link in the show notes to this image so you can refer back to it.
So Padawan number one is like, hey, let's stop fighting. I'm the holy Digimon. I call the shots. Padawan 2 is the iconic scene where Padawan's crying because he's infected. But it is okay. Padawan 3 is Padawan ready to kick some ass. He got his paws up ready to beatbox. Padawan 4 is Padawan post fight. He has a little dirt on him. He's a little bit beat up, but he's smiling because he kicked some ass.
Okay,
Um,
stop using the F bomb. I have to edit those out.
do you want me to redo that?
No, I'll just edit them.
Just put like a boom bubble sound over it. Like he kicks some boom bubble.
No, no.
Um, so Padawan 5 is when your friend that you don't like, that you told your best friend, like, you know, I'm not really feeling them. I don't like their vibe. I think the kids say they failed the vibe check. And then that person gets invited and they show up to the gig and you're like, not this. Number 6, Padawan number 6 is he looks really weird in this picture. I'm not sure. It looks like he's wearing a mask for some reason.
This to me reminds me of like a Miyazaki film where they're just like, I imagine this Patamon like sitting in a window, like watching the air breeze by on a train.
Yeah. Also, the eye shape is a little different than all the other ones. I think it's because we can see the white of Padmon's eyes, and in no other picture are there whites of eyes. The eyes are just all pupil,
Mm.
a pupil and iris. Padmon number 7 is when there's drama happening on the other side of the summer camp, and you're just watching, eating your little Digimon egg, and you're like, Mm, wow, that's drama. Padmon 8 is when you discover the drama happening other side camp and you're like hanging over a fence, like, ooh, ooh, what who did what say? Ooh, no, they didn't. Padmon 9 is when you realize the drama is involving you and now they're looking at you, calling your name and pointing at you, and you're now involved. And that's not what you came here for. And Padmon 10 is when you're like just hanging out after camp, like, wow, this really was a day.
Okay, I'm cutting all of that. No, I'm not. So which one are you today?
Today or right now?
Right now.
Right now I'm a little between 5 and 7 because it is very late. Um,
Yeah, 5 with him just like drooling.
but maybe I'm 4 because I'm tired and probably would like to take a shower before I go to bed. But also I'm happy because I got to see all these pictures of Patamon.
Oh boy. Okay, and that was our Patamon vibe checkup segment.
It was a bop.
No, I know I'm using all this terminology wrong, but I know that's wrong.
You need a Patamon number 1 right now. Okay, you're at a 3. You need to be at 1.
And remember, never stop evolving.
You know what? You are Patamon number 7 and 5.
And 4 and 8 and 15 and 16 and 23 and 42.
People should submit their Patamons. I
Who-
don't like Patamon number 6. I don't like seeing the whites of his eyes.
But what about Patamamba number 5? On that note, bye.